Good morning. Today, we're going to have Gary Greenberg, who's the Executive Director of the Hudson County Boys and Girls Clubs, as our speaker. Gary has spent his entire career and most of his life in helping at-risk youth survive and thrive. He has built the Boys and Girls Club from a small operation in an abandoned coal bunker to a county-wide operation with educational, recreational, aftercare, and life-saving options for thousands of youths in Hudson County. So, Gary.
Hello, everyone. Gary Greenberg, as Tom said, I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Hudson County. When Tom asked me a couple of days ago to speak, as we know, Craig Guy, who we're very close with in Hudson County and in Jersey City, has a family emergency that he's attending to. So when Tom asked me to come down and give a talk, I figured, well, where do I even start with the fact that I have a career? I've been with the Boys and Girls Club for 49 years. So, and everything in building a business and building a nonprofit, as you all know, every experience, every learning experience is a building block for something else. So, when I grew up in Jersey City, I never heard of the Boys and Girls Club. At that time, the city of Jersey City, was divided by wards, was divided by sections. There were no malls, there was no light rail, there was no waterfront, there was no development. It was just neighborhoods of a very old, tired city. I had never heard of the Boys and Girls Club growing up. In September of 1975, my parents said to me, go around the corner and go meet with Aaron Schulman, and he's going to tell you about something about after school, some boys club or something. I went around and spoke to him, gave me an opportunity to work there after school and to start there. On my first day driving down, I grew up in the center of Jersey City, and at that time, like I said, many of the times you didn't go to the other areas of the city unless you went to the center, which was Journal Square at the time. So even when I went down there for the first day, I can hardly find it. The Boys and Girls Club at that time was in a little brownstone row house all the way down near the waterfront where the immigrants had come in. So that started out in 1893. It started as a settlement house, which quickly then turned into a Boys and Girls Club. It was a very small building. The program that was running there was just on one floor, the ground floor, a couple of pool tables, a couple of ping pong tables. That was basically it. I was placed at another section of Jersey City. I guess the Boys Club at that time had received a grant from the state for after-school programming, Title 20 funds. So I was hired on that grant. I was placed in another section of Jersey City. We stayed there for a year. Then we had to move out of there, and we moved down to the Lafayette section of Jersey City, which was the home of another Boys and Girls Club called the Jersey City Boys Club, which opened in the 1920s. It was a little paint factory. So when I got down there, and I honestly have to say, my first day there, I realized that this is something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was amazed and felt terrific by the response of the kids in the neighborhood, and basically, we were serving 3 public housing projects, which were very, very tough at the times. This was in the mid-'70s when I would come out on the porch of the Boys and Girls Club, and there would be, car fires, mattress fires, home fires, you name it, it was there. But yet, the kids that came to the Boys and Girls Club from those 3 housing projects, from those neighborhoods, they absolutely loved it. I was hired as a van driver, working part-time. I was substitute teaching during the day. Once at the Boys and Girls Club there in the little place in Lafayette, I realized that basketball was like a religion there. I realized that this was something that, the kids were so unbelievably interested in. So, I gathered a couple of neighborhood kids, and I figured, well, how do I start getting the Boys and Girls Club on the map? So what I decided to do is, like, as I said, I formed a little team, and everything builds on something else. We were allowed to be entered in the CYO program, which was all for the parish schools at the time. We were the only non-parish program ever allowed in the CYO. So, but it caused a lot of excitement. Kids got to play different parishes, different Catholic schools in different neighborhoods. It was a way to get the kids out of the building and even bringing them into different neighborhoods and meeting new kids at the time. And it was a way to get the Boys and Girls Club on the map in Jersey City. I thought that people will see the uniform, see us, and they'll start understanding that we're bigger than just a little one-room house, schoolhouse. So things, of course, at that time were a little sexist. The girls, we had a sewing program there. We had a culinary kitchen food program there where the kids went for culinary arts. We took whatever the facility had and just turned it into a program. Girls cheerleaders means that we needed to have a sewing program where they sewed and made their own uniforms, and the girls came to the games. Then, while I was wandering through Jersey City, and I drove through what was then, before Liberty Park was even Liberty Park, we found an abandoned warehouse. Went into the warehouse, made it a 24/7 project, turned that into a gymnasium, had the floor painted. We did it, we painted it, we put the lines in. I got a local heating company to come in and show me how to put the heat on when we needed it. I had to go up onto the ceiling with a stick and hit the reset button to get the thing on. But we didn't care, because to us, we brought our music down there for little music when people came in. And that was the first time that we were able to invite teams in from around Jersey City and outside of Jersey City, which was also a way to get our kids to meet other people, like we said, from different communities. Then, 1978, I realized that there was a strategic plan being put in place to open up two facilities. One was abandoned coal bunker in Jersey City, just up a few blocks from where we were. And the other location was in Hoboken at an old Jefferson Street Recreation Center that was abandoned. We applied for funding for Hoboken, got block grant funding and so on and so forth, and had that building rebuilt and redone, which is still standing and serving children to this day. So while the strategic plan was then put in place to open facilities in the 80s, I figured it was a good time. Actually, my girlfriend thought it was a good time to go to graduate school and so on and so forth. So I applied to graduate school, went for my MSW, went to Columbia. While at Columbia, I went 2 years full-time, lived in the Bronx at Van Cortlandt Park, still went down to the Boys and Girls Club every night. After class, rode down, went to the Boys and Girls Club, spent an hour or two there, then drove all the way back to Van Cortlandt Park every night. In my second year at Columbia, I was selected one of two, I guess, staff people in the entire country. I received a Robert Woodruff Fellowship, which helped pay my second year tuition at Columbia. But what it did is it gave me an opportunity to intern at Boys and Girls Clubs of America. See, everything leads to something else. So while at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, I spent 6 months there. They were right across the street from the United Nations at the time. While I was there, I participated I went from floor to floor, month to month. So everything from program services to marketing to human resources to fiscal management, you name it, I went from floor to floor and was taught by the top professionals in the country. While on the program floor, which of course I love the most, I had the opportunity to judge or read all of the applications that came in, where Boys and Girls Clubs of America gave out honor awards every year to the top programs in the country. I had the luxury of reading every single entry that came in, learned about everything that everybody was doing around the nation, worked with my supervisor to help judge it, and so on and so forth. Also, while at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, I literally made copies. There weren't computers back then. So I literally made copies of every single thing I can get my hands on that I can bring back to Jersey City, from human resources manuals, policy and procedures, fiscal management, every job descriptions, everything on earth. I took it back, including all the applications for the honor awards. I took every one of them back with me. Also, had the opportunity to visit the best programs in the country, best Boys and Girls Clubs in the country. I went up to Jefferson Park up in East Harlem, and I was up there, met with somebody who I admire to this day, Al Fields, who explained to me how tough his area was and how his Boys and Girls Club was considered neutral territory because on every block was a different gang, different gang, different gang. Incredible. Of course, when they came into the Boys Club at the time, he created sports leagues and put each gang would become a different team and participated in the sports leagues there. No fighting, no violence, Boys and Girls Club, or any of that was off limits to them. Then I got sent to, for the summer, I got sent to Memphis, which was the top Boys and Girls Club in the country at the time. I got sent there. I was there for 6 weeks, learned everything under the sun that you can imagine. Then I was asked while I was there to go to one of their program locations and spend some time there. After the first 5 minutes I was there, I was in their pool recreation room, and it was a fight. A kid threw a pool ball at another kid. So I guess they thought it was a big deal, but I just stepped right in, broke it up, calmed it down, interceded, so on, so on, so on, and so on, where everybody else in the room was like looking around and amazed that somebody would do that. But I guess coming from Jersey or from Jersey City, I don't know, but it was out of instinct really to help these kids, to calm it down and try to find a solution. So I interceded right away. Then after graduate school, came back to the Boys and Girls Club in 1980. And that's when I came back with unbridled energy and a quest to become the biggest and best program in Jersey City, Hudson County, and beyond that. It was my quest to be the biggest and the best, and there was no stopping me. So rather than remaining insulated, I figured, how do I get out into the different communities in the city? So we helped form which is famous in Jersey City, but we helped form the Roberto Clemente Little League at the time and their Babe Ruth program. It was a way for us to get exposed to all of the different kids, and that league was primarily in the Hispanic section from downtown Jersey City. We entered, when that program was formed, we had kids, but what I did is I entered Hispanic kids from downtown, but where I was placed in the Lafayette section was mostly African American. And what I did for the first time, because to me, the Boys and Girls Club is for everybody, and how are we gonna weave this city together if it's not somebody leading it like us? So I had kids from both programs, African Americans with the Hispanic population. It was integrated at the time, which we were the only group that was doing that at the time. But it was an opportunity for me to get introduced to different sponsors, to different corporate groups that were there. Schiavone Bonomo, other companies, Colgate, Port Authority, and so on and so on and so forth. So I became familiar with them, and they became sponsors of the league, but then friends of the Boys and Girls Club as well. Then switching back to basketball, here we are in the early 1980s. We then decided for the first time to bring the Boys and Girls Club out statewide so that we participated in AAU basketball, travel team basketball, but for real, traveling around the state and elsewhere. I was mentored through our first experience, had Mandy Johnson on my first team, who grew up in the Marion section of Jersey City. See, I'm getting kids in from different areas of the city. So Mandy Johnson, who played for us, went to St. Anthony's, and then played for Marquette, who we're still very, very, very close to this day, by the way. So that was our first team. We didn't know anything about basketball. I had Coach Hurley sitting behind me, and he was sort of coaching the team through me and my other friend. Also at the time in Jersey City, it was the very, very beginning of when the city was becoming, I guess, gentrified, when the new population was just beginning to move in. So downtown Jersey City was plagued with gangs. Every block, every single block was a gang. The Mercer boys, the Wayne Street boys, City Hall boys, this one, Washington Street, so on. CIA, criminals in action, so on and so on and so on and so on. So what I did is I used the model that I learned about in LA, and I used what I learned up in Jefferson Park, and I turned all of these gangs into, believe it or not, flag football teams. I know it sounds corny, but it was something that they all clung on to. It really just changed everything, and everybody got into it. We had no place to really do it. We ran the program on what was Christopher Columbus Drive by the waterfront because nothing had been built there yet. So we figured this is this is an empty space, let's take it. Once they started developing the waterfront, we had to move and find another place to play. But we did have gangs as teams. In addition to that, then I decided to branch out because boxing was very popular, another way to pull in the Hispanic population, and there were other populations in Jersey City as well. We heard of a boxing ring that was available up in the Boston area. We took our school bus, Jose Cruz, who was a firefighter, who grew up at the Boys and Girls Club. We went to Boston. They took the ring apart, slid it down the aisle of the bus. We brought it down, had no place to run it at that time, ran it on the 4th floor of a grammar school in Jersey City, Cordero, 37 school. Jose Cruz, being a firefighter, used his equipment to get the ring up there. But then that further got us introduced out into the state and out into the different communities because we participated in the Spanish gloves, diamond gloves, golden gloves. We were boxing in Elizabeth at the Dunn Center and so on and so forth. So we were beginning to get all over the state now with boxing, and we did very well. One of our kids, Jose Rosario, made it to the Colorado, made it to the Olympic training camp and made the team as an alternative. So, that was terrific at the time. Then while that was happening, I was then beginning to implement the Boys and Girls Club programs. So Boys and Girls Clubs of America has a program that they call Keystone, which is really a leadership development small group club program that conducts services in the community and services to the club. So believe it or not, so I took what I did is I formed the Keystone Club. I put members of the gangs in the Keystone Club, which is supposed to be, your most accelerated leaders, your exceptional kids. But these kids, to me, had so much potential that if you wipe away all of the the stuff, the situations that they've been stuck with their whole lives, you eliminate all of that, The kids, they were absolutely wonderful. So one project that we did is that I took all these graffiti gangs, and the project was, instead of doing graffiti all over Jersey City, people would wake up and come out and see their brownstone just have murals, which they call pieces, you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of damage to the schools, to the hospital, to City Hall, and so on and so forth. So I found them legal places to do their art. Now they call it urban art. What I did is I took their art and found legal places for them to do that. They agreed to it, got Sipperstein Paints to sponsor it, got the paint for free. Kids were no longer going to different places and stealing it. And so I legitimized the art to the point where in front of the high school that they attended, Ferris High School, our kids put a big mural out in front of it. And then people from downtown Jersey City would call me to ask me, how do I stop the graffiti on their properties? One was St. Joan Quigley at St. Francis Hospital, so on and so on and so on. And I would go, I'd see it, I would know who the tag was, you know, who the initials were, and then I would, believe it or not, I would find the kids and tell them and get them to stop doing it. For some reason, maybe it was because they knew I was sincere about it and how I felt about it and so on and so forth. Or maybe they were just looking for leadership, I don't know. But it did stop. It did stop. Many of those graffiti artists today, you know, one worked for the Port Authority, one is an accountant, and so on and so on. Another kid who worked for the Port Authority, his nickname was Bullet, by the way. So we won that national award from Boys and Girls Clubs of America. We raised money, took the kids to Florida, to the national conference, thousands of kids there, four-star, you know, beautiful hotel. We were there, we were the honored, we won the national award in front of everybody. Next year, we raised money, went to the Philadelphia conference. I took those very same kids, had no transportation or anything, so I'm bringing them up and back in my Toyota Corolla Fastback, my little car, to St. Joseph's School for the Blind. So here I had these rough, tough gang kids who were now Keystoners, and I had them doing physical therapy with kids that are blind and developmentally disabled. So there you go, you know, so, you know, that was a great opportunity. They also, in Philadelphia, 2 years in a row, we won the national award as well. So we're probably the only club really in history to do for that to happen, considering how many of the organizations are out there. So we did that. Then as we got another competition program for Boys and Girls Clubs of America is a leadership development program as well. And they select a youth of the year where somebody, one of your members represents your organization. You go into a state competition, regional, national, so on. Thousands of clubs, as you know. So we, at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, so what we were able to do is to get, we then had a it was called Boy of the Year. It was only Boys Clubs of America, Boys Club of Jersey City. Girls didn't happen until the early 90s, believe it or not, even though we had girls coming in once a week. But the first application I wrote to Boys and Girls Clubs of America on behalf of Rafael Ramirez, we won for the state of New Jersey because I wrote about him, poured my heart out about him, and they selected him, and it's really an amazing accomplishment on his part, the fact that he has grown and been able to give speeches, go to the dinner, and accept this. It's just an amazing thing. The very next year, we entered the Youth of the Year, the Boy of the Year competition as well, Aldenis Acosta. Not only did he win for the state of New Jersey, but he won for the Northeast, went to Washington, and got to go to the White House and meet President Reagan. So that was in our second year. But again, these are all incredible opportunities for kids, while at the same time building the Boys and Girls Club, and it's just all of these different facets and letting people know just all of the incredible amount of things that's possible. So once we started, the new buildings were getting ready to open in '84. The capital campaign ran out of money, ran out of funds. I, at that time, asked my friends who were in law school at Rutgers Law. They researched and researched to see how can we get out of this and finish the project. They informed us, educated us about a lease-back arrangement that was made. So that was done, that was put together, that was conducted. That was a way for the boys clubs to get finished in 1984 in Jersey City and in the one we were redoing in Hoboken. When we opened in 1984, the state of New Jersey came to me and asked us to write a grant and I can pick what I wanted to write. They had a set amount of funds, $232,000, which was a fortune at that time. And I went back to Columbia, sat on the floor, was pulling out all this information out of the library, and I created a program called the Youth Achievement Center. And it was a behavior modification program where kids were getting rewarded by their teachers every day based on how they behaved in school. They would give the child the points on a point card, give it to the child at the end of the school day. The child would bring it to the Boys and Girls Club, get positive reinforcement, get acknowledged in front of everybody, put the card up on the wall. At the end of the week, we had what was called Prize Day, so on and so forth. And it was a way to get the kids excited about doing well in school and behaving in school and also doing well in life. So we were one of the first Boys and Girls Clubs. That grant allowed us also to hire a case manager, a caseworker. We were one of the first Boys and Girls Clubs in America to have somebody that does that, somebody that follows individual kids that absolutely needed us the most. We then, with a caseworker and we went out to all of the public schools, so on and so forth. We asked the schools for their most difficult kids. They sent us their most difficult kids gladly, because then it was an opportunity for us on a day-to-day basis working with the school district and the teachers. One young man that we worked with, Angel Morales, who was in and out of the youth house, had a tough upbringing for various reasons, so on and so forth. The amazing thing about him is that, one, he was brilliant, and two, when he was in the youth house, he would write these incredible letters to me and to the Boys and Girls Club about what he wants to do in his life and his future, and he's sorry, and so on and so forth. But beautifully written, to the point where years later, public defenders were using that as a model. I was also visiting him out at the youth house. I would go out there, I'd bring him toothpaste and this and that and soap and things, just to show him that, there are people in the world out there that care about him. Another family, the Cummings family, by getting funding through the state, we were now getting referrals from the Division of Youth and Family Services. Tyrone, Matthew, and Joey, the Cummings kids, lived in a dangerous situation, an abusive household. Just the mother, her thing, God forbid, was that she would throw hammers, tools. She would take stuff and just start throwing stuff at the kids, and so on and so forth. It was terrible. We still know these kids to this day. I still see Tyrone to this day. He's doing very well, has a family, so on and so forth. Taking it a step further, we figured, well, how do we further extend this to help individuals? Is that we went into mentoring. So we formed Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Hudson County, which was running out of our building, the Boys and Girls Clubs of Hudson County. So that program became so successful, it branched out and it became its own agency. It became so large, which is still running today as Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Essex and Hudson County. One of our first sponsorships, how things started to change. The building was one of the first buildings on the waterfront, 101 Hudson, occupied by Merrill Lynch. We were one of the first in the state of New Jersey They donated computers to open a computer lab. We got additional funding to open up a learning center. So that's what came in. Boxing went out. Boxing got moved to another program that is actually still to Marciano's gym. It's actually still running today, which is where I pretend to go and work out when I get a second to do that. But Merrill Lynch became one of the first. Another thing we did, then the next thing we got close with the New Jersey State Bar Foundation and conflict resolution, teaching children how to handle different issues, so on and so forth. With that funding, we turned basketball into the academic basketball league, where that kids would bring in their point cards from school, and the points would be applied to their team's score that went up in the scoreboard in the gym. So not only were the kids being rewarded with a pat in the back, now their points went up onto the scoreboard as well. That gave us, all the teams were named after colleges and universities. As part of the experience, all of the kids wrote, each team was named after a college or university. We got personal, and the kids wrote letters to the different universities asking them for material. All of the schools complied, North Carolina, Duke, all of the schools that they, loved, including St. John's, and other coaches as well. And some of the coaches actually wrote personal notes to the kids, which I had saved. I've given those to the kids, but it was pretty touching. It was very inspirational. In addition to that, we started getting very close with, now that we were in the courts, working with kids in the system, we became very close with the prosecutors, one in particular, Carmen Massano. We partnered with them. He funded us $66,000 a year. And then we partnered with the Jersey City Housing Authority. At first, we were serving 3 sites, the 3 sites around the Boys Club, which was on Ash Street, where it was placed. Now we were serving all of the kids at all 8 sites. How we were doing that is we formed a basketball program. We had 3 teams, so we had 36 kids, 36 kids from each of the 8 locations, in addition to kids from every single tough corner in Jersey City. And we had every single one of them in. We had 45 teams. We had over 600 kids in the program, and ran it on site, outside, on our outdoor courts at the Boys and Girls Club. While at the same time, then things started to expand further. We got involved with the New Jersey Nets, thanks to a board member who helped make that possible. So we got involved with the New Jersey Nets. They picked us when they won the Eastern Division. They picked us to be a Read to Achieve learning center. So they took our learning center and donated, I don't know, upwards of $100,000 and put new equipment, new computers, and so on in there, had it painted, had all the logos there. Had a great opening where the commissioner, past, iconic players and players of the New Jersey Nets were there, like Jason Kidd and so on and so forth. I was happiest because Steve Shripper was there from the Sopranos. So that was my biggest thrill, is that he came as well. But the point of it is, then in addition to that, we were plugging into government money, and we were getting block grant funding to fix up the Boys and Girls Clubs to keep the facilities running. We had a tremendous relationship with them. They had a great relationship with us because they knew that if they were giving us the funding, that it was being spent and being accounted for down to the penny. That when anybody came to evaluate this program from the federal government, they brought them to us first. We had the best reputation in accepting and implementing those grants, and those grants kept the building running in Jersey City. The abandoned coal bunker that we turned into a Boys and Girls Club kept us running. Goldman Sachs moved into the waterfront. We then became close with them. They gave us $20,000 and bought a bus. The William E. Simon Foundation from New York, they were looking for one city in the state of New Jersey to infuse all of their resources into. They wanted to do it to one city, Paterson, Newark, so on, Camden, so on, so on, so on, Jersey City. I took their board with Bill Wachenfeld, who was the head of the Hayden Foundation. I had him on the bus. I took them on our school bus, our rickety old school bus at the time, and drove them through the areas where we get our kids from. They came back, then they said, no, Jersey City is it. Not only did they fund us up until now, from all the way back then, they adopted the city, and there's over 30 different agencies now. Everybody now in the city practically is now funded by them, and it's made an incredible difference. Meanwhile, things are progressing in the Hoboken Club, very close with their housing authorities, so on and so forth. Opened up the first computer lab in that town. That was the second one we opened up. Next, travel teams. We then accelerated that. We had a tremendous sponsor, Brian Doherty, who was a real estate attorney, an amazing human being, my God. A big fan of St. Anthony's, big fan of basketball, big fan of the Boys and Girls Club. Every Friday I would ride by the law firm that he worked for, and Peggy O'Brien would run out and hand me the cash to take the kids. I was in the van to leave and take the kids, which we would go up to Yale, go up to Providence, and really play up and down the East Coast. Then we got then sponsors started to come in for that. Panasonic was the next one. And then Cali Realty, which was Brand Cali, funded us as well. I told them a story about one of our players was Sean Berno, who was crying to my sister and myself. My sister had him as a teacher in the 6th grade, crying that he wanted to kill himself, that it was just him and his brother trying to raise his grandmother in the Duncan projects. And she had dementia. She was walking around the projects, with no clothes on. These two little kids were trying to manage this. He was talking about how he wanted to kill himself. He grew up at the Boys and Girls Club, played on all our teams, but was with us every minute of his life. Went to St. Anthony's. We were also with him through that, but he was in St. Anthony's. They won 80-something games in a row at that time, won a national championship. He then graduated, went to DePaul, went into coaching, so on and so forth, is now head coach at Northern Illinois State. So here's a kid from the Duncan projects who had nothing, crying in Al's Diner's parking lot that he wanted to kill himself, to what he's become today. It's a sheer miracle. The madman that I am, a little competitive. We won 33 state championships. There was some summers we won 3 age divisions in one summer, which is unheard of, 13s, 14s, 15s. Greatest players were Sean McLeod, went to St. John's, then Duke, Atlanta Hawks, Terry DeHere, Jerry Walker, Anthony Perry, 14 school, tough street that he grew up on, oh my God. When I found him in 14 school, the bathroom door opened up and there was all marijuana smoke, and that was him coming out. Didn't want anything to do with any sort of discipline, would get up in the classroom and just go home. That's how ornery and tough this kid was. I would have to go there and shake him. His mother would make me shake him to wake him up to come to our practice. We won 4 straight AAU championships with them, with Rashawn and Anthony. Anthony Perry, too, like Rashawn, then went into St. Anthony's, so on and so forth. He of course, went to Georgetown, did graduate, and is running a educational business down in the Washington, D.C. area. So here's a kid who grew up in the worst drug block imaginable, even to this day. As much as the city has changed, it's tough as anything up there. This is where he was from. He's a completely changed person. We were considered the feeder program for St. Anthony's, which I consider an honor, because I consider Bob Hurley a great friend and the best teacher and coach in the world. When we would travel to these different cities for AAU, when we went to Kingsport, Tennessee, we're in the ice cream parlor, getting the kids ice cream. People were running up to the kids because they were from Jersey City. The Boys and Girls Club was so much on the map that when we went down to Kingsport, we were the sports headline in the paper for the national tournament, us, because we were from Jersey City, and of course, St. Anthony's is from Jersey City. Bobby Hurley was from Jersey City, Coach Hurley. So, you know, it was a great, tremendous benefit to us, and St. Anthony's loved the fact that, you know, we were sharing in each other's successes, so to speak. Like I said, Anthony, I'll fly through this. Anthony and Rashawn, they won 4 years in a row. Then I had the team that won 5 years in a row, Marcus Otisby. And then the book was written, The Miracle of St. Anthony. And the book is about the Boys and Girls Club crew. It says it in there through it. All of the Boys and Girls Club kids, it's a year in the life of the Boys and Girls Club kids playing for Bob Hurley. So needless to say, great exposure for us, tremendous for the school and tremendous for St. Anthony's. And it's funny that your old school is that the description of our program in the book is that we were old school because we weren't part of the new breed where people were just starting to accept money under the table and this and this and this and this, like the stuff you know that goes on. We being the Boys and Girls Club, that's an impossibility. That would never happen and never did happen. So, you know, we base, you know, it's so important to teach the kids the right way to be. And needless to say, the kids that did play for us, they didn't even want to leave. They didn't want to play for the other programs, even though they were offered some enticements and then also enticements to go to college. I'll go on and on. Donald Copeland, he's been our coach for the last 25, 30 years. His son and his friends were on our one of our biddy basketball teams. His son, Donald Copeland Jr., is coaching at Wagner. The other child on the team, the other kid on the team, Bashia Mason, is coaching at St. Peter's University. Alex Maribel, who was on that team, is coaching for St. Peter's Prep. Dwayne Lee is coaching for George Washington, and so on and so forth. That's how well these kids have done. And they're still in touch, they're still involved. And of course, we had a dinner they were at a couple of weeks ago. Then in 2010, 2011, let's just say, I was approached by someone to see, is there anything that you'd want to do with this property? Meaning, would you ever take an opportunity of giving this up? So I stood there for a second and I said, and the question was, did you want to give up the outdoor basketball courts that were outside in front of the building? And I said, how about instead of the basketball courts, how about the whole thing? We shook hands, went down, walked out of the elevator onto the street, and the rest was history. From the mayor to housing and economic development, to redevelopment, to zoning, to so on and so forth. The business administrator for the city, Rosemary McFadden, who was Brian Doherty's partner and wife, commanded a meeting, you know, at Housing and Economic Development, you know, put a fist on the table and said, this project is next, it's first, it has to happen now, because the city didn't want me to keep pouring funds into maintaining the coal bunker when it was just like pouring money down the drain. So instead of doing that, everybody got together and wanted us to get a new facility and a new place and so on and so forth. So while at the new building, it opened in 2014, we sold our property to these two development companies who are the most amazing people in the world to us. There's even, you know, 10 years later, they're still supporting us every day. Not only, you know, will we, you know, receive funds based on the density, based on how many units they were able to build. So, of course, they went and tried to get the most units as possible. They built us into a new residential building that they were building. They redesigned it. They gave us the first 2 floors. It was designed. I had carte blanche to anything that I wanted. All looking through the building, it's all glass. It's gorgeous. It's beyond belief. It's a gift from God. Since we opened, Then I figured when we opened, we did establish a very good friendship with the Jersey City Medical Center. Right before our RWJ Barnabas partnered with them, we formed a charter high school, which was Great Futures Charter High School for the Health Sciences. I created a high school so that kids are studying the health sciences would then, in partnership, would have internship opportunities at the Jersey City Medical Center. The program's very successful. It grew to the point where it outgrew our building, and they're now located in another part of Jersey City. Then it started to, as everything is mushrooming, and that's why I want to lead to this point. And then, you know, the corporations were out in the forefront. We decided that the new building that they built us into, we chose to stay in the downtown area. Number one, we're at a light rail station, so every high school kid in the county can get there. And two, I was advised by a very close friend of mine not to leave the downtown area, not that I would have, because if I did, it would be out of sight and out of mind. And then we would just, I was afraid, fall into the abyss. Knowing what was coming on the waterfront, knowing the development that was on its way and booming, you know, whether it's companies like RBC, Morgan Stanley, Matt Cali, KRE, Iron State, Toll Brothers, Field Development, Panapinto, so on, Fidelity Investments, every single corporation company and everybody involved with the waterfront chose the Boys and Girls Club to be involved with. So then, in addition, now that we're up to the present, I want to talk about now things are slightly easier because now people are asking us to run programs for them. We're in 2 locations up in 2 of the toughest grammar schools in the city. The Jersey City School District just asked us if we would go into another one. And that's 21st century funding, $500,000 a year, 5-year. It's a 5-year contract. We're now in our 3rd round. We're in our 3rd contract. So we're expanding on that. Now the county of Hudson County comes to us and says, you run in addition to all the camps and programs you run during the day, can you run our sports leagues, our basketball leagues in the evening? So we're in 3 county parks. We're there every night from 4 to 8 because they know that when we do it and we run it, that there won't be any incidents. It's going to be safe, and the quality of the program is going to be absolutely top notch. So I have people helping me run these sites that go all the way back to the very, 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 very beginning. I have people working at the Boys and Girls Club now that have been there for 20, 25 years or more. So right now, we have 10 locations. We're served, that the children are served by 139 adult staff, 860 volunteers a year. Yes, 860 is the number. We had 2,070 registered members. We served an additional 1,036 kids in groups that we partner with, whether it's charter schools, Hoboken Housing Authority, Jersey City Housing Authority, and so on, Hudson County CASA, all those other groups add another 1,036 on there. So 30% of our members are teenagers. Many Boys and Girls Clubs across the country have difficulty getting teenagers. How do you retain the middle school kids and remain relevant so that when they turn into high school kids, they're going to continue to come? 30% of our enrollment are high school kids. 95% are minorities. 81% receive free and reduced lunch, and 79% are from single-parent households. So our mission, of course, is to run, you know, top-notch programs and so on and so forth. So before I conclude, I'd like to know if you can bring up so you can go next. So that's Boys and Girls Club when it was the Settlement House. That's Rafael Romero's. That's when they were a Settlement House. If you hold it on this one, the one to the left is Rafael, our first Youth of the Year, which he was called a Boy of the Year back then. And the second one, Keystone Motto, that's when we started getting all publicity in the papers about the programs we were doing, the anti-graffiti program, and so on and so forth. Next. And then you can see, if you just go back one. Anyway, in this one, this is when we're receiving a citation from the mayor, Jerry McCann at that time, for the projects, for the national awards that we won. You could see the artwork in the left photograph. That's the artwork that these graffiti artists were now doing on the inside. That's an example of the interior of a daycare center. That's me to the right with the afro, with the hair like that. That's me. And then you can see the kids to the right, they're break dancing, which you could see that's a sign of the times. You see all the graffiti and murals behind it. Instead of doing it on people's houses, they were doing it in daycare centers. Next. And there's a photograph of the kids from the 3 housing projects back in the 1970s. Next, that's me in the middle with my coat open. Next. To the left, that's the team that we entered in Roberto Clemente in the formation of the Little League. What you see behind you in the outfield is practically nothing, a building, and then everything is vacant or as they say, bombed out, because Newport, the construction, the development, none of that has happened yet. The thing about this team is that it's integrated, and the fact that we entered them in there. The team the photo to the right are the original travel team from the 3 housing projects. Next. We're almost done. That's Al Dennis meeting Ronald Reagan, Northeast Regional Youth of the Year. Next. There's the coal bunker to the left. That's the building we moved into in 1984. That's the very same building that everyone in Jersey City advised and helped us get out of there, get rid of it, and get into a state-of-the-art facility. The building to the right is the Jefferson Recreation Center that we turned into the Hoboken Club. Next. And then to the left on the top, that's our Roberto Clemente. That's Willie Banks, Goody Banks, who pitched for the Yankees. Below, that's the boxing program. That then moved to the Marciano Gym, but that was the boxing program. That's the ring that we were able to get from Boston. That's the front of the boys club, as you see. No girls at the time. These are the kids out in the front. And then next. We had a circus arts program. The beginning of the Big Apple Circus, the founders came over to Jersey City and were teaching our kids circus arts. The kids would do performances in the gym. But then I did bring them around to the grammar schools around Jersey City, and they performed for assemblies in their different schools. Next. Almost done. To the left, that's when we were running the league, the basketball programs sponsored by the prosecutor. That's him in the very middle. Up to 650 kids were involved in that program. To the right, that's Merrill Lynch. We were at Merrill Lynch. That's their Christmas party. That's the early 1980s. They are the ones that gave us our first computer lab. Next. And to the left, it's just an example how whenever St. Anthony's traveled, you see the Jersey City Boys Club under it. We actually would get billing with them when they would go travel around the Northeast and play their games. To the right, this is the Boys and Girls Club that opened in 1984, the coal bunker. This is an example of bringing in the street kids into the Boys and Girls Club, and they were actually mixing with the African-American community. Next. Anthony Perry, early went to Georgetown. Tough kid, tough situation, is still living in Georgetown now. Next. Giselle Hunt, 2006. She was another New Jersey Youth of the Year winner for us. She won for the state. She won for the Northeast. She finished second in the country, and she met President Bush. Next. Here's an example. I won't go through it, and I won't read it all, but when the Boys and Girls Club, when the transaction was done and the building was coming down, there were kids going by the building, you know, saying these amazing things about their wonderful memories of the Boys and Girls Club. So Dominique Gadsden had some, beautiful words to say. Next. That's the new Boys and Girls Club that so many friends from Jersey City, every facet of the community rooted for us and made it possible for us to go in there, which is where we are today. And then next. There's an example, a $25,000 grant for laptops for STEM. That's from UPS. Since then, we've gotten almost countless number of opportunities as well. Next. On the top is just individual tutoring that we do. On the bottom is one of our Boys and Girls Club kids whose dream was always to become a police officer. Well, that has happened. That's Mayor Fulop. That's the ceremony where that happened. We have 10 police officers that are Boys and Girls Club alumni and 10 firefighters as well. And then next, that's a career fair. To give you an example what the inside of the building looks like, modern, big windows, lots of light. And as you can see, it's packed. The response we get from the working community is amazing. And then next. Outdoor garden and what's right very close to the Jersey City waterfront. That's part of our Healthy Habits initiative. The kids grow all the way until they actually harvest, and then we eat everything that we grow, fruits and vegetables. And then next. Outdoor basketball league that the county has asked us to do. Next. The top, Keystone Club in 2016. Suicide, there was a Boys and Girls Club kid that was suicidal. Wasn't allowed to seek counseling, wasn't allowed to say anything to anybody unless you had permission from your parents. Unfortunately, it was the parent that was doing this to the child. The Keystone Club then for 2 years gathered sponsors down in Trenton and passed the law, which is called the Boys and Girls Club Keystone Law, which now you have to be, they lowered the age down to 16. That was Governor Christie's last thing he did before he left office. He signed it. And then next, Healthy Habits, culinary arts program. Needless to say, the kids line up for that. And then next. Obviously, a sign of the times in the last 10 years, the importance of science and STEM. The person to the right worked at the Liberty Science Center. The person to the left is a graduate student. We're very happy to have them. And then next. And this, Facebook has a national competition, an engineering nationwide competition. We won locally. They flew us out to San Francisco, and the 4 girls won the national competition, the engineering contest that was run by Facebook. And then Youth of the Year, accepting a $300,000 Questbridge scholarship to Northwestern. He's the major in chemistry. Then next. Youth of the Year, 2 years ago, Trinity, won for the state, grew up homeless, sleeping on bathroom floors, kids in grammar school bullying her, telling her that she smelled like urine and so on and so forth, had a tough upbringing. The rest is history. She came to the Boys and Girls Club once she hit high school, was able to make a presentation in front of the judges for the Youth of the Year, and the people in there just couldn't believe. And she's now, for next year, she's attending William Patterson. And then next. And then last but not least, this is just an example of what the Boys and Girls Club has grown into. You can see all the different companies and entities. It's just endless, endless, endless. And I think is there one more page? And then there you go. Those are the rest. So I didn't mean to take up too much time, but once I got going, I couldn't stop. So, Whew. Now I can exhale. I told you it was a lot. Any questions?
Thank you for that great success story. I'm curious, Merrill Lynch stepped in and donated a computer lab space, and I guess the equipment also. What's the backstory? How did you get to twist some arms, make some connections? That Merrill Lynch did that for you.
I actually bumped into the gentleman, Arthur Thomas. Art Thomas, had a conversation with him in a local restaurant, and the rest was history. And then after that, once I talked to him, so.
I think this is one of the most remarkable success stories we've ever heard. And why don't you?
Gary, thank you very much for making the presentation. And the old guard has two ways to thank you. One is a certificate. It's at the time, this town was one of the most famous in growing those in the country. And the second way of thank you is the old guard salute. Sure.
I was a little nervous, I have to say, when Tom asked me to do this, but I was really honored to be here in front of you. I know that you're a group that definitely understands, you know what it takes to be successful, yet to your heart and soul. So thank you for listening to me.